Tucker. What are yours?
Yeah, I think we've got to look at Miami, Ohio. They're one of the few undefeated teams left. You've got there's like Iowa State, Vandy, couple others, and you've got Miami, Ohio, who I've seen them on some graphics as like being undefeated. They're 17-0. Now let's be honest, their schedule is terrible.
Yeah.
Like they have played no major conference teams yet, and that they won't. Their schedule is very, very bad. I'd be curious, like a strength of schedule. Theirs would be easily like in the high 100s, maybe 200s. I mean, this is bad.
I'm looking it up for you.
So I will say, the schedule's not great, but I don't care. 17-0, that's impressive. They did have they had a close win against UNC Asheville. They won an OT, and that was obviously their closest game there. And I don't really know what their best win would be here because again, I mean, their schedule is just not great. Like if I read some of these teams off, you probably wouldn't even know some of these teams. So not the greatest schedule, but again, 17-0 is impressive. I don't think that it's going to be good enough to get into the tournament if you don't win your conference tournament. Like if Miami, Ohio somehow loses in their conference tournament, I don't think the schedule is good enough to get into the tournament.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I should have looked this up beforehand. Who's the highest, ranked team in KenPom that they've beaten? They're 97 at 17-0. They're 97 in KenPom.
According to this website that I found, their strength of schedule is 209th.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Which is probably not right.
Yeah, that is atrocious. Okay.
Yeah.
So like I guess UNC Greensboro or UNC Asheville maybe is like their best win.
Those are their best wins.
Toledo? I don't know, man.
Hey, Buffalo's actually pretty good though. So they got to play Buffalo soon, and Buffalo's not bad.
No, yeah. That's not a bad team. They've made some, when Nate Oates was at Buffalo, they made some noise in the tournament.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like 17-0 is impressive. Okay.
Yes, it is.
And they've got several guys in double figures on this team. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys average double figures. That's impressive. And this is something that you need out of your team with when it comes to March, having multiple guys to kind of throw at other teams. They average 93 points a game. Like you were talking about that. That's pretty impressive. So anyways, I think Miami, Ohio is a team to keep an eye on because of just how, they've been running through their schedule. They're 17-0. The other team, actually I have 2 other teams, but the other team I wanted to mention was George Mason. All right. George Mason, made a run to the Final Four several years ago. I don't remember when. That was like 2006, I feel like.
Let me see.
I think they lost to LSU.
2006, good call.
Okay. I think they lost to LSU that year. But they're in the A10 as well, which that will be really interesting to see them when they play St. Louis. And that's the last game of the season. How about that? So
who are they playing? Sorry.
George Mason plays St. Louis last game of the season. So
wow.
Your team playing the team that I'm bringing up here. But George Mason, 16-1. Their lone loss is to Virginia Tech. They lost that game by 11 points at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is, not a great team, but they're solid. They beat Virginia recently. There's nobody else on that. This is kind of like Miami, Ohio's schedule, but better because of Virginia Tech on this one. There's really nobody else on the schedule that you just look at and it's like, oh man, that's a great team.
Yeah.
They've handled their business against all these teams, and a lot of these have been blowouts. A lot of them have been blowouts. They've been handling these teams. And so I'm curious to see when they're now getting into conference play. They did beat VCU the other night. That's a good win. But we got to wait and see against, St. Louis is going to be one of the big ones.
Oh, yeah. In 2006, they beat Michigan State, North Carolina, and number 1 seed UConn, and they ended up losing. They ended up losing to Florida,
Oh, it's Florida.
who won the championship that year.
Yeah. So, I mean, like these two teams, you've got to just look at their record and think, okay, like 16-1 and 17-0 for Miami, Ohio, and George Mason, like that's impressive. And so I wanted to highlight these two teams, although their schedules have not been super strong. These teams I could see getting into the tournament and winning a game, or maybe even making it to the second weekend. We'll see how that goes. The last team I wanted to pull up was New Mexico. New Mexico, they've had solid team. They were a solid team last year. I think they had Donovan Dent was on the team last year, and transferred to UCLA, of course. But this seems solid too. Like they're 13-3. They're in the Mountain West, with Utah State that Dalton talked about. So we're curious to see how that plays out there. They've lost to Nebraska. They lost to Nebraska by 12. So, I mean, relatively close against Nebraska, who's looking like a really good team. Now, they were down by 18 at halftime. But they closed the gap in the second half. They did beat Mississippi State. So this team has beaten an SEC team. And Mississippi State's, put up some good fights here in the SEC early season so far. They beat Santa Clara. They beat VCU. They did lose to Boise State recently, and they have lost to New Mexico State. So it's kind of, there's some up and downs here, but like, I'm just looking at the fact that they at least competed against Nebraska somewhat, and they beat Mississippi State. So this is a team that, I think could make some noise too. Doesn't look like they don't have anybody who's going to wow you. Their leading scorer, Jake Hall, averages 14 points a game. So,
but that win against Mississippi State is way better than any other wins that any of the other teams we mentioned.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's why I wanted to kind of pull them as another example. But I was trying to look here at their KenPom ranking, and I'm not finding them here right now.
If you do Command F, you can type them in.
Yeah, it's 51. They're 51. Okay. And that's solid for
really not terrible.
Yeah, a Mountain West team, but like I said, Utah State's all the way up at 20. So
which is really impressive.
I think both those teams are going to make the tournament, and I could see them making a run. There's other teams out there, guys. Leave them in the comments if you think there's a team out there who can make a run. And inevitably, guys, we didn't mention teams from the power conferences. There are going to be some teams that like sneak in as like an 8 or 9 seed or 10 seed or maybe even an 11 seed, and they make a run, or a 7 seed, and they make a run as a major conference team. Like, again, NC State barely made the tournament. I think they were an 11 seed a couple years ago. They went to the Final Four.
They only made it because they won the ACC that year.
Yeah. And we're not going to talk about these power conference teams. We wanted to talk about some teams that like are under the radar you probably haven't heard of before. So look out for these teams come March. I think most of these or all of them are going to make the tournament. So look out.